cross the cultivation realm and bind the offspring enhancement system. As long as there are enough spiritual stones, the spiritual roots of Taoist priests and their descendants can be infinitely strengthened. Although he does not have a spiritual root and cannot cultivate, he can obtain the cultivation return of Taoist priests and descendants. As long as he has enough children, he can continuously improve his cultivation. Countless years have passed, and his children have become more and more numerous, and his cultivation has also become higher and higher. In the end, he broke through the shackles of the heavenly way and transcended the universe. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Ultimate Spirit Root. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yunzhou, Heong Town, Zhangzhou Village. The tranquil farmyard looks particularly warm in the evening. Daddy, Daddy, I'm hungry. With a crisp childlike voice, a little girl with pink carving and jade carving bounced into the yard and shouted to the busy middle-aged man. The middle-aged man turned around with a spoiled smile on his face. He was Zhang Han, a traveler from Earth who had lived in this world of cultivation for 25 years. Wen Wen, be good. Dad is cooking for you. Zhang Han coaxed softly, but his hand movements did not stop. He was preparing ingredients for dinner. Recalling his own travel experience, Zhang Han couldn't help but feel deeply moved in his heart. He crossed over and became a baby in this world. He thought he could embark on the path of cultivating immortality like the protagonist in a novel, with a proud smile on his face. However, fate played a cruel joke on him. At the age of 6, Xianmen tested his spiritual roots, but he was found to have no spiritual roots and was destined to be an ordinary person for a lifetime. This kind of blow was undoubtedly huge for Zhang Han, but he did not sink into it. Instead, he actively lived a better life and eventually married a childhood sweetheart at the age of 18. I thought life would just go on smoothly and happily, but on his wedding night, he unexpectedly bound a strange system called the inheritance enhancement system. The function of this system left Zhang Han both surprised and helpless. It can consume his lifespan to enhance the quality of a child's spiritual roots. For an ordinary person without spiritual roots and destined to be unable to cultivate immortality, such a system is undoubtedly a satire. However, Zhang Han saw a glimmer of hope in it. He was willing to exchange his own life for a better future for his children, even if it meant that his own life would be shortened. However, fate once again played a cruel joke on him. After overdrawing his lifespan, he grew 10 years older and gradually developed physical problems, becoming impotent. This blow was undoubtedly heavy for Zhang Han, who felt extremely frustrated and helpless. A few years later, his childhood sweetheart's wife also suffered a severe injury during childbirth and eventually died of illness at home. Zhang Han speculates that it may be because the child who nurtures the ultimate spiritual root consumes too much essence and blood, causing his wife's body to be unable to bear it. The death of his wife was a huge blow to Zhang Han. He lost the woman he truly loved and also lost a complete family. Whenever Zhang Han recalls the wonderful times he spent with his wife, he feels a sharp pain in his heart. If he had known such consequences, he would have preferred to live a simple and happy life. However, time cannot go back, he can only silently endure this pain and regret. Time flies like a white horse, and in the blink of an eye, the day of the Ascension Conference has arrived. Heong Town is filled with a festive atmosphere, with lights and colorful decorations, and a surge of people eagerly anticipating the arrival of the Immortal Sect. Every 3 years, the Immortal Sect sends envoys to various towns to hold a grand ceremony for ascending immortals. This is the starting point for children aged 5 or 6 to embark on the path of cultivating immortality. If they are fortunate enough to be detected to have qualified spiritual roots, they can be accepted as disciples by the Immortal Sect, and from then on, they will be reborn and become respected immortal masters. The square is crowded with people and bustling with voices. Parents are bringing their children here, hoping for an opportunity to change their destiny. Zhang Han held his daughter's small hand and walked through the crowd, arriving at the information registration office to register her daughter's information. Name: Zhang Wen. Age: 6 years old. Gender: female. Height: 1.2 meters. Hometown: Zhangjia Village, Heang Town, Yunzhou. After filling out the form, the daughter obediently stood at the end of the children's team according to the instructions of the staff, waiting for the arrival of the immortal teacher. Zhang Han stood on the side, his gaze gently fixed on his daughter. At this moment, the atmosphere on the square became increasingly tense and excited. People are whispering and discussing the possible outcome of this ascension ceremony. The immortal master has arrived. With a cry of surprise from the people, the atmosphere of the entire square instantly boiled up. Not long after, a golden stream of light flew from the sky, and a magnificent flying boat slowly landed and stopped steadily on the central square of Heang Town. The flying boat is hundreds of meters long, wrapped in a light blue semi-transparent shield, and classical wooden buildings are scattered on the deck, appearing both mysterious and spectacular. This is not the first time Zhang Han has seen this flying boat, but he still feels shocked every time. He remembers seeing this flying boat land for the first time when he was 3 years old. At that time, although he was an earthling, he was still shocked by the grand scene. But now, standing here again with his daughter, his mood is completely different. On the flying boat, there stood several young men and women dressed in immortal Taoist robes. They had outstanding temperament, immortal demeanor and backbone, as if they were out of place in this mortal world. In addition, there are also some children aged 5 or 6 who have been selected from various places and possess spiritual roots. They are about to embark on a brand new journey of cultivation. After the flying boat landed, a young immortal master in his 20s flew out of the deck. He was dressed in a Taoist robe, elegant and dusty, stepping on a flying sword, hovering in the void. His arrival made everyone in the square hold their breath. Children of all ages should come up for the spiritual root test. Hurry up a bit, we have to go to the next place after the test. The voice of the young immortal, although not loud, spread clearly throughout the entire square. Subsequently, the young immortal walked up to the testing platform that the staff had already prepared and sat down. He took out a semi-transparent crystal ball the size of a watermelon and gently placed it on the test bench, then embedded the crystal ball in the holder of the test bench. The crystal ball is engraved with dense runes, which flow inside the crystal ball and emit a mysterious and profound atmosphere. This is the magic weapon used in the cultivation world to detect spiritual roots. As long as the child places their hand on the crystal ball on the testing table and the young immortal enters the spiritual determination, their spiritual root aptitude can be detected. This is the first and crucial step on the path of cultivating immortality. Let's start. The young immortal looked at the children who had already lined up and said. Subsequently, several staff members began guiding the children in line to undergo spiritual root testing. The first test was conducted on a 6-year-old boy. He gently placed his hand on the crystal ball as instructed by the staff. The young immortal waved his hand lightly, and a white light flashed through. His spiritual determination instantly entered the crystal ball. However, a few seconds passed and the crystal ball remained motionless. The young immortal shook his head slightly and said gently to the little boy, "You don't have a spiritual root, go down." The little boy heard this result and a hint of disappointment flashed in his eyes, silently walking back to the team. Next, the testing will continue. Every child is filled with anticipation and nervousness, hoping to have the legendary spiritual roots. However, reality is cruel. One child after another walked forward, and one child after another returned disappointed. "You don't have any spiritual roots, next one." The voice of the young immortal echoed in the square. Every time he said these words, a child left with a disappointed expression. Some children can't even help but cry, their dreams shatter at this moment. The speed of spiritual root detection is very fast, and it can be completed almost every 10 seconds. However, as the testing progressed, the results became increasingly disappointing. In less than 30 minutes, hundreds of children have been tested, but surprisingly none have spiritual roots. Seeing such a result, the young immortal's face also began to look unattractive. In the world of cultivation, spiritual roots are the key to whether everyone can embark on the path of cultivation. There are less than 500 eligible children in the entire town, and more than 100 children have been tested, but none of them have spiritual roots, which makes the masters responsible for testing very unhappy. They know that for every disciple they recruit, they will receive corresponding rewards, and the better their spiritual roots are, the richer their rewards will be. Just as the atmosphere became increasingly tense, a turning point finally arrived. When testing the 116th child, the color of the crystal ball changed, and a light red light slowly lit up. Lower grade fire type spiritual roots, good, stand over here. The young immortal finally showed a hint of joy on his face. For this small town, having a child with spiritual roots is already a great blessing. A 5-year-old boy with a lower grade fire type spiritual root immediately grinned when he heard that he had a spiritual root. The parents of the little boy were also surprised, knowing that their child would embark on a unique path from now on. Others looked at them with envy, secretly hoping that their children would also have spiritual roots. In this world of cultivation, having a spiritual root is like being admitted to a prestigious school in a previous life, which is a great event to honor one's ancestors and change one's destiny. The spiritual root not only represents a person's ability to practice, but also signifies a leap in social class. Even a miscellaneous disciple who has not achieved success in cultivation can return to their hometown in old age and physical decline, and with the wealth and knowledge accumulated during cultivation, become a wealthy family with a net worth of billions. However, spiritual roots are not something that everyone can possess. The young immortal nodded in satisfaction, his gaze showing admiration for the little boy. As the little boy stood behind him, he cleared his throat and shouted, "Next." The children rushed in one after another, each with a nervous and hopeful mood, and came forward for testing. However, the continuous, no spiritual roots, next gradually made the originally hopeful atmosphere heavy. The parents of those children, whose faces were originally full of hope, now also showed a look of disappointment. They are well aware that spiritual roots are the only way to enter the realm of cultivation, and such opportunities for ordinary people can only rely on divine will. No spiritual roots, next one. The voice of the immortal teacher echoed in the open field, and each repetition was like a merciless judgment, making the hearts of the people present even heavier. You should know that even a lower-grade spiritual root has a 1 in 1,000 chance of appearing, the young immortal muttered in his heart, accustomed to such a result. But whenever he sees parents and children who are full of hope but ultimately disappointed and return, he still feels a hint of regret. Time passed, and soon it was Zhang Wen, the daughter of Zhang Han. Zhang Han stood in the crowd, with mixed feelings in his heart. He knew his daughter's uniqueness and was both nervous and eager. Because he knew that his daughter was hiding an astonishing secret. The ultimate spiritual root. This is what he bought with a 10-year lifespan, and it is also an eternal pain in his heart because he lost his childhood sweetheart's beloved wife for it. Zhang Wen nervously walked up to the crystal ball and, following the instructions of the immortal, gently placed her tender white hands on the crystal ball. Her heartbeat accelerated, her small hands trembled slightly, and her heart was filled with anxiety, unsure if she could detect her spiritual roots. The young immortal looked at the little girl in front of him without much expectation in his heart. After all, after so many tests, he no longer has much hope for the results. However, at the moment he injected magic into the crystal ball, a sudden mutation occurred. The crystal ball began to emit a faint green glow. At first, the light was still faint, but as time passed, the crystal ball gradually emitted a dazzling light, with unpredictable colors, as if containing infinite power. This is. The young immortal widened his eyes, unable to believe his own. The people around were stunned by the sudden change, their eyes wide open, and they looked at the crystal ball in disbelief. The young immortal in charge of testing also stood up from his seat, with a look of ecstasy on his face. Zhang Han stood on the side, his heart also filled with excitement. He knew that his daughter had finally shown her true talent, and all the sacrifices were finally going to be rewarded. He clenched his fist tightly, as if he had already seen his daughter's brilliant path to cultivation in the future. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Rapidly Rich. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this moment, several immortal masters leisurely sipping tea on the flying boat suddenly showed a surprised expression. They looked at each other, their eyes sparkling with excitement. In the next moment, these immortal masters floated down from the flying boat and landed lightly on the ground, then circled around Wen Wen with great interest. Their eyes were burning with flames, as if they wanted to see through this little girl. Surprisingly, it is a top-quality spiritual root, and it is a rare wooden heavenly spiritual root. This kind of qualification has a probability of 1 in 10 million, and we really hit our luck this time. One of the immortal masters exclaimed excitedly, his voice trembling. Upon hearing the words, top-notch spiritual roots of the wood series, Zhang Han finally breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He secretly felt fortunate that the system had not deceived him, and his daughter indeed possessed such astonishing talent. He is well aware that according to the system's instructions, he can obtain 1/1,000,000th of their cultivation from their offspring. This means that as long as one has enough offspring in strong cultivation, even without spiritual roots, they can still have strong strength. Zhang Han's heart was filled with anticipation and longing. He imagined the future. If he could preach to Dalai Lama and become the legendary Dalai Lama, he would be able to cross the river of time, resurrect his childhood sweetheart's wife, and even find his parents from the previous life, as well as those who died of illness in this life. Once this idea comes to mind, it can no longer be shaken away. Zhang Han knows that this will be his future goal and motivation. He will use the system to do his best to cultivate his daughter, making her a shining star in the cultivation world, and also bringing hope and rebirth to himself and his family. On that day, Wen Wen, her daughter, bid farewell to Han Yi with tears in her eyes and embarked on the path of cultivating immortality to the Purple Cloud sect. As Zhang Han watched his daughter gradually move away from him, an indescribable sadness surged in his heart, while also filled with comfort and pride. He knew that all of this was his credit, and it was his sacrifice and dedication that earned his daughter's future. It has been several days since the ascension ceremony, but the excitement at Zhang Han's house has not diminished at all. Since the news spread that his daughter was found to have top-notch spiritual roots and was worshipped by the Purple Cloud sect, Zhang Han's identity and status instantly skyrocketed. There is a constant stream of visitors at home, including relatives and friends who have come from afar, as well as strangers who come from afar. They all hope to establish a relationship with this person who will soon have a background in the immortal sect. Although Zhang Han was a bit tired of dealing with it, his heart was filled with joy and pride. He knew that all of this was glory and wealth brought to him by his daughter. Based on the experience of this world, once a child enters the immortal sect, even the lower-level miscellaneous disciples can receive huge rewards from the immortal sect. These rewards are enough to enable the Zhang Han family to live a prosperous life without worrying about their livelihood anymore. However, in addition to joy and pride, Zhang Han couldn't help but feel a little melancholy and reluctance in his heart. Xian Fan is different. He cannot grow up with his daughter, and we don't know when we will meet again. But he knew that this was the best choice for his daughter, and also the best way out for her future. He could only silently bless his daughter to go further and achieve great success on the path of cultivating immortality. A few days later, Qingzi, the immortal master of Zixiao sect, personally came to Heong Town and found Zhang Han. As a cultivator during the foundation building period, Changqingzi is responsible for the arrangements for settling Zhang Han during this visit. According to the rules of the immortal sect, once a disciple joins the sect will provide a large amount of settlement fees to ensure that the family of the disciples of the immortal sect can live a carefree life, allowing them to focus on cultivation. For a hero father like Zhang Han who can give birth to top-notch spiritual roots, the rewards from the immortal sect are even more generous. Changqingzi brought news of her daughter, saying that Wen Wen had already joined the sect of Weishu Fairy, the primordial elder of the Zixiao sect, and became her own disciple. What an opportunity it is to become a disciple passed down by the elder of the immortal sect. Zhang Han was filled with excitement in his heart. The material rewards given by the immortal sect are even more abundant. A large amount of gold, silver, and jewelry filled the entire room, with a total of millions of taels of silver alone, enough to allow Zhang Han to live a luxurious life. In addition, Xian Men also arranged a luxurious mansion for Zhang Han in the center of Heiyang town, covering dozens of acres. The mansion was equipped with servants, maidservants, and butlers, allowing him to live a life he had never imagined before. A few days later, Zhang Han was taken out of the village by the 8 carriage and arrived at the mansion in Heiyang town in a grand manner. Zhang Han stood in front of the mansion, gazing at the magnificent building in front of him, with an indescribable emotion surging in his heart. He knew that all of this was brought to him by his daughter. "Welcome back, sir." As soon as Zhang Han entered the door, he saw more than 10 servants kneeling neatly at the entrance to greet him, their faces all showing respectful expressions. "Free of charge, let's all get up." Zhang Han was a bit bewildered by the sudden scene and quickly waved his hand to signal them to get up. "Thank you, sir." Everyone responded in unison, then stood up, still maintaining a respectful posture, waiting for Zhang Han's instructions. Zhang Han looked around and felt a bit unfamiliar and uncomfortable with this luxurious mansion. He took a deep breath, tried to calm himself down, and said to the crowd, "Don't worry about me for now. Let's continue doing what we did before." Upon hearing Zhang Han's words, a man in his 40s and 50s stood up. He was the butler of the mansion, named Wang Fugui. He bowed slightly to Zhang Han and then said, "The master has spoken. Caixia and Caixia, please stay and take care of the master. Everyone else should go and get busy with their own affairs." "Yes." Everyone responded in unison, and then they all went busy. In the end, only Wang Fugui and 2 beautiful maidservants, Caixia and Caixia, remained. Zhang Han looked at the 3 people in front of him and asked curiously, "Are you all?" Wang Fugui respectfully replied, "Master Hui, I am the butler of the mansion, named Wang Fugui. They are the maidservants of the mansion, this is Caixia, this is Caixia. If the master has any requests or needs any help, please let us know." Caixia and Caixia quickly bowed to Zhang Han, their voices sweet and clear. "Caixia, Caixia, has seen the master." Zhang Han nodded slightly. He knows that from now on, he will begin to adapt to this new life, and these people will be a part of his new life. Zhang Han then carefully examined his maidservants, and saw that each of them had hands like soft catkins, skin like condensed fat, and their graceful figures were even more graceful against the backdrop of light gauze skirts. Their facial features are exquisite and picturesque, all of whom are stunning beauties that make one's heart skip a beat. "I don't have anything to say now, just take me on a tour of the mansion," Zhang Han said to Wang Fugui and the maids beside him. "Good sir, please." Wang Fugui respectfully accepted and then led Zhang Han on a tour of the mansion, leading the way ahead. Following in the footsteps of Wang Fugui, Zhang Han carefully surveyed the mansion. "I saw a small bridge and flowing water inside the mansion, winding paths leading to seclusion, exuding a simple and elegant atmosphere everywhere. The buildings and trees here are perfectly arranged in a neat and orderly manner, creating beautiful scenes one after another." Zhang Han couldn't help but exclaim, "This place is really as beautiful as a fairyland." Wang Fugui smiled and replied, "Sir, this mansion was built in the style of Suzhou Gardens, and every scenery has been carefully designed and decorated, with the aim of allowing you to enjoy the most comfortable life here." Zhang Han nodded and continued to follow Wang Fugue on the tour. They walked through the courtyard, through the corridor, and arrived at the central area of the mansion. There is a rockery here, with flowing water and clear and pleasant sounds, making one feel relaxed and happy. The entire mansion covers an area of 80 acres, vast and spacious. Zhang Han learned that there are a total of 60 rooms in the mansion, each decorated in a magnificent and classical style. In addition, there is a butler responsible for managing the daily affairs of the mansion, and 10 servants are responsible for the safety and security of the mansion. Of course, the most eye-catching ones were the 8 beautiful maids. They are all young girls of 17 or 18 years old, each with their own unique features and extremely high looks, each of whom can be called a class flower. They were dressed in light gauze dresses, with light gait, like fairies descending to earth. Zhang Han met them one by one, and they all respectfully bowed and said hello to him. These maidservants not only have outstanding looks, but also are proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, each with their own unique skills. They will be responsible for taking care of Zhang Han's daily life and providing him with thoughtful services. After visiting the mansion, Zhang Han was very satisfied with everything here. He was filled with anticipation and excitement, looking forward to starting a new life in this luxurious mansion. After visiting the mansion, Zhang Han returned to the hall with satisfaction. Caixia and Caiyun, 2 maidservants, followed closely behind. One gently pinched Zhang Han's shoulders, while the other carefully pounded his legs. Both of their movements appeared so skilled and gentle. While enjoying the tranquility and comfort of this moment, Zhang Han decided to take the opportunity to learn some details about the mansion from them. He asked, "Caixia, Caiyun, I have some questions I would like to ask you." Caixia smiled and replied, "Sir, please speak up. We will definitely know everything." Zhang Han nodded and began to inquire about the servants and maids. Originally, those servants were indeed hired guards by the immortal sect. They were like laborers in the mansion, and if they performed poorly or were dissatisfied, they could be dismissed at any time. And for these maids, Zhang Han is more interested. He learned that there were a total of 8 maids, different from the servants, who were top-notch maids specially purchased by the immortal sect from intermediaries. Every maid undergoes strict screening and training, proficient in every aspect of music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, each with their own unique skills. At dinner time, the mansion was brightly lit and warm. Zhang Han sat at the dining table, attended by 2 beautiful maidservants, Yun Shang and Yun Rong. They have elegant behavior, a smile on their faces, and always pay attention to Zhang Han's needs. Zhang Han only needed his gaze to signal, and Yun Shang and Yun Rong could immediately understand his intention and bring him the dishes he wanted. Each dish has excellent color, aroma, and taste, making people drool. As Zhang Han savored the delicious food, he couldn't help but feel deeply moved. This kind of life is truly like a dream. After dinner, the 2 maids, Ziqin and Ziyue, brought clear water and carefully brushed Zhang Han's teeth with willow branches and green salt. Their movements were gentle and proficient, making Zhang Han feel incredibly comfortable. "Master, the hot water is ready and you can take a shower." Half an hour after dinner, the maid Feifei walked into the room with a red face and said. Her voice is sweet and gentle, making people feel happy when they hear it. Zhang Han, accompanied by Lin Fei and Lini, entered the spacious and comfortable bathroom. Lin Fei is responsible for controlling the temperature of the shower water and occasionally adding hot water, and Lin Yi wiped his back, with gentle and meticulous movements. At night, when Han Yi was preparing to go to bed, he was surprised to find a woman lying on his bed, which was the beautiful maid Caixia. Upon seeing Han Yi enter, Caixia immediately stood up with a blush on her face and shyly said, "Master, the bed is already warm. I'll leave now." After finishing speaking, Caixia walked out of the room lightly and went to the next room to rest. Han Yi finally understood that Caixia was a legendary warm-up girl who was specifically responsible for warming the bed for her owner. Lying in bed, Han Yi is currently lying on the soft bed, feeling an unprecedented level of comfort and contentment. He closed his eyes, as if he could still smell the elegant body fragrance emanating from Caixia. The fragrance was like orchids and musk, refreshing the heart and causing an inexplicable ripple in his heart. However, considering his current situation, Han Yi couldn't help but feel a wave of helplessness. Although he enjoys the treatment of an old master, his physical condition prevents him from truly enjoying all of this. The feeling of powerlessness made him feel extremely tormented. The next morning, a servant came to his room and respectfully stood outside the door, saying, "Sir, someone is asking to see you outside." Han Yi nodded and gestured for his servant to lead the way. He arrived at the hall and found that the visitors were actually local county magistrates and prefects. As soon as these two officials saw Han Yi, they all approached and bowed with utmost respect. "Mr. Zhang, I've heard a lot about you, and I finally met you today. It's truly a blessing in life." The county magistrate spoke first, his tone full of praise and respect for Han Yi. The magistrate followed closely behind and said, "Mr. Zhang, your reputation is well known. We have been wanting to visit you, but unfortunately, our official duties are busy and we only have the opportunity today. Please forgive me, Mr. Zhang." Han Yi responded with a smile, "You too are polite. I am also a newcomer and I need to rely more on the support of these two adults." In the following time, Han Yi had in-depth conversations with two officials. They talked about the customs and economic development of Heong Town, and Han Yi took the opportunity to learn more about the world. As the conversation deepened, Han Yi gradually realized that his identity and status in this world had undergone earth-shattering changes. He is no longer the ordinary modern person, but has become a respected and powerful old man. As night fell, Han Yi bid farewell to the county magistrate and prefect. He stood at the entrance of the mansion, gazing at the starry night sky, filled with longing and anticipation for the future. He knew that his new life had officially begun. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. Goodbye, Wen Wen. You are listening at novel-full.audio. After enjoying a few days of clothing and food, Zhang Han gradually became familiar with the beautiful maids in the mansion. This kind of life is truly intoxicating, with someone wiping their back while taking a shower and someone warming the bed while sleeping. Every detail is filled with comfort and enjoyment. This ambiguous atmosphere makes Zhang Han feel very comfortable, and perhaps every man yearns for such a life in his heart. Ying Yen Yen surrounded him, and his meticulous care made him feel even more warm. Over the past few months, Zhang Han's relationship with these maids became increasingly intimate. He can even choose his favorite woman to accompany him freely, but his physical condition prevents him from enjoying this pleasure, which has become an indescribable pain in his heart. During this period, there has been a constant stream of visitors to the mansion. Both high-ranking officials and businessmen have come to visit Zhang Han, hoping to make new friends with him. At the same time, many matchmakers learned that Zhang Han had not yet married and came to introduce him to someone. After all, Zhang Han's family is now wealthy and has a deep background. Although he is alone now, the strength of the immortal sect behind him is strong, indicating that the Zhang family will become a prominent family that will not decline for 1,000 years. What is particularly noteworthy is that he has a daughter with top-notch spiritual roots, who is undoubtedly a genius in cultivation and can live for thousands of years without any problem. Therefore, there is an endless stream of women who want to marry Zhang Han. They believe that as long as Zhang Han is willing, he can marry a more beautiful woman than his ex-wife at any time. However, Zhang Han firmly refused the proposal to remarry. Originally, in order to conceive offspring with top-notch spiritual roots, he had overdrawn his body, causing him to be unable to engage in marital affairs now. He didn't want to wear a green hat, so he could only politely decline the kindness of these matchmakers. However, he is not without women accompanying him. The 8 maids in the family are all young and beautiful women, and they have a very close relationship with him. In these days, he would randomly choose a maid to embrace and sleep at night, enjoying the cozy fragrance of soft jade in his arms. Unfortunately, he can only satisfy his desires and cannot truly enjoy the pleasure of fish and water. Although possessing endless wealth and 8 young, beautiful, and versatile beauties, Zhang Han's physical shortcomings have always left him feeling depressed and unhappy. He became a eunuch, unable to enjoy normal married life even with money, which became an indescribable pain in his heart. Time flies like a white horse, and in the blink of an eye, his daughter Zhang Wen has been away for 8 years. After such a long time, there is no news from her, and he misses her very much. However, fortunately, he has a system that allows him to view his daughter's situation through the system panel, and he can also see what happens to his daughter. Name: Zhang Wen. Race: human race. Gender: female. Age: 14. Cultivation: building a foundation with 8 floors. Talent: wood-based. Heavenly spirit root. On March 5, your daughter Zhang Wen unexpectedly entered a short-term enlightenment while practicing Qing immortal decision, gaining a deeper understanding of it. On March 7, your daughter and junior sister Li Qingyao went shopping in the local market and found a somewhat special jade. They bought it and found it to be an ordinary jade, which made them very unhappy. On March 15, your daughter Zhang Wen felt that her cultivation had reached a bottleneck, so she participated in the preaching of Wuyazi, a senior brother of the Golden Core period, and gained something in her heart. Through the system, Zhang Han was able to gain insight into every detail of his daughter's life, even through cold words and data, which was enough to make him feel a touch of warmth and comfort. The system's cultivation feedback function surprised him even more. Although it is only a 1,000th return of his daughter's cultivation, his strength is quietly steadily improving as he accumulates. From an ordinary person in the past to a third-rate warrior today, Zhang Han felt a significant increase in his own strength. With this strength, he is also adept at cultivating ordinary martial arts secrets on the market, making rapid progress. The improvement of strength not only made him feel proud, but also gradually restored the vitality of his essence and blood, and made his appearance more youthful. However, despite becoming a martial arts master, Zhang Han's troubles in his heart did not dissipate as a result. The indescribable symptom of not taking action remains an indelible shadow in his heart. He often thinks with melancholy that even with strong strength, he cannot enjoy the happiness that a man should have, which is undoubtedly the biggest regret in his heart. All of Zhang Han's hopes were pinned on his daughter Zhang Wen, but Xian Fan was different and he could never get in touch with her. This untouchable expectation filled his heart with helplessness and anxiety. He knew very well that the only chance to get in touch with his daughter was when the Zixiao sect came here to test the spiritual roots. However, the apprenticeship period of the Zixiao sect is once every 12 years, and there are still 4 years left until the next arrival of the Zixiao sect. During this period, he could only wait anxiously, hoping that time would pass faster. Finally, 3 years have passed. During this period, Zhang Wen's cultivation progressed by leaps and bounds, successfully breaking through to the realm of the golden elixir. This breakthrough not only greatly increased Zhang Wen's strength, but also provided Zhang Han with cultivation feedback. At this moment, his cultivation also skyrocketed, breaking through and entering the innate realm. It's March of another year. After 12 years, I finally arrived at the disciples of the Zixiao sect to recruit my disciples. The flying boat of the Zixiao sect once again arrived in Heiyang town. This day is undoubtedly a long-awaited day for Zhang Han. He arrived early at the central square, filled with anticipation and excitement, hoping to send a letter to his daughter through the disciples of the Purple Cloud sect. Dad. Unexpectedly, as soon as the flying boat landed, Zhang Han saw a beautiful girl dressed in chiffon flying over and calling her father. Wen Wen. Zhang Han looked at the girl in front of him who looked quite similar to his ex-wife, and an indescribable excitement surged in his heart. After hearing Zhang Han's words, Zhang Wen's heart trembled and she couldn't help feeling excited anymore. She rushed over and threw herself into Zhang Han's arms. Feeling the tears of his daughter dripping onto his back, Jing Han couldn't help but shed tears. It wasn't easy, it took them 12 years to reunite again. "Dad, where do you live now? I want to stay at home with you for a while," Zhang Wen asked, wiping away the tears from her eyes. "Dad lives in the town, not far from here. What should you do about the spiritual root test after you leave?" Zhang Han asked when she saw that she was going with her. "I don't need to worry about the spiritual root test. I came here specifically to see you. My master used to say that my cultivation was too low and it was not safe outside. I was only allowed to come out after breaking through the golden core, otherwise I would have come to see you long ago. This time, I broke through the realm of the golden elixir and happened to meet the team of the sect's spiritual root detection. I came by the way," Zhang Wen explained. "Oh, I see." Zhang Han couldn't help but feel lost. Then, Zhang Han took his daughter to Zhang's mansion, and the father and daughter began to talk about the bits and pieces of these years. Zhang Han finally understood why his daughter hadn't come to see him for so many years. Originally, Zixiao sect was over 100,000 kilometers away from Heiyang town, and there were several 10,000-meter-high mountain ranges in the middle. Unless it reached the Golden Core realm or took a flying boat, it was impossible to pass through. After staying at home for over a month, my daughter left and Zhang Han did not try to persuade her to stay. Because he knew the huge gap between immortals and mortals, she couldn't waste time with herself as an ordinary person. The next time we met, we would probably have to wait for many years, perhaps never again. Because although his actual age is only 37 years old, giving birth to a daughter requires too much blood and essence, and he looks 50 years old, he doesn't know how long he can live. Before leaving, Zhang Wen prepared many gifts. Seeing that Zhang Han was able to cultivate martial arts, he was delighted and left behind many martial arts secrets. There was also a cultivation technique called Eternal Youth Decision that could be practiced until the foundation period, claiming that practicing it could extend his lifespan. In addition, there are many spiritual medicines and stones. Finally, she also left a few communication jade slips for Zhang Han. If there is anything important, Zhang Han can contact her through the communication jade slips. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4. Opening of the Mall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After his daughter left, Zhang Han was also very sad in his heart. After finally getting together, he left again this time. Zhang Han carefully opened the storage bag left for him by his daughter, and in front of him were neatly arranged bottles of spiritual medicine. Each bottle of spiritual medicine is labeled with a detailed instruction manual, clearly explaining their efficacy. He looked at each one and felt moved and warm in his heart. When he discovered that one of the bottles was the elixir for treating impotence, an indescribable gratitude surged in his heart. Originally, his daughter had already discovered his hidden illness, although she had not explicitly stated it, she silently prepared such medicine for him. This thoughtfulness and care make Zhang Han feel warm and happy. He eagerly opened the bottle of spiritual medicine and poured out a pill to take. The spiritual medicine emits a faint fragrance, which melts upon entry and quickly turns into a warm current surging around the body. A tingling sensation rose from his lower body, and he knew it was a spiritual medicine working to repair his damaged function. Half an hour later, Zhang Han was pleasantly surprised to find that his body had finally returned to normal. The long-lost feeling returned to him, and he almost burst into tears of joy. 18 years of suffering from impotence have tormented him, and now he has finally been freed, feeling immensely fortunate and grateful. The beautiful maidservants in his family have transformed from teenage girls in their 20s to young women in their 30s, and he has never been able to get close to them. Now, he can finally relive the joy of being a man, which makes him feel incredibly satisfied and happy. There were also some spirit stones in the storage bag. After taking out a piece of spirit stone, he curiously observed that it was a crystal that was crystal clear, each the size of a fist, and looked very beautiful. Suddenly, the system's prompt sounded in his mind. Ding! An energy substance has been detected that can provide energy to the system. Is it absorbed? Upon hearing the system's prompt sound, Zhang Han was very surprised that the system could absorb the energy of the spirit stone. Absorb. Zhang Han immediately decided to try absorbing energy. Subsequently, the spiritual stone in his hand began to slowly shrink, quickly losing its luster, and finally turned into a honeycomb-like white stone. With a slight pinch, it became a pile of powder. Ding! Congratulations to the host, you have obtained 0.854 points of energy. The current system energy is 0.854 points. Ding! Once the activation conditions are met, the system mall will open. The host can use energy to shop in the mall. After hearing the system prompt, Zhang Han couldn't help but be overjoyed. He quickly opened the system panel and found an additional shopping mall option above it. Click on the system mall option, and Zhang Han sees that there are items that can be exchanged, but there are very few options available for exchange. Shou Yuan pill. It can replenish the lifespan of the living body, and can only be used by the host Taoist couple, and the host's offspring. It is invalid for others and can be used infinitely. Price: 1 energy point. Spirit root enhancement pill. Can enhance the quality of spirit roots. Only the host Taoist couple, and host offspring can use it. It is invalid for others and can be used infinitely. Price: 1 energy point. Although there are only 2 types of products in the mall, Zhang Han is also overjoyed. With these 2, even if he does not cultivate himself, he can live forever and continuously strengthen the spiritual roots of Taoist priests and their descendants, going against the heavens to the extreme. Subsequently, Zhang Han's eyes lit up and he immediately took out all the spirit stones from the storage bag. There is a big pile, and after counting, my daughter actually left hundreds of spirit stones for me. He picked up a spirit stone and began to absorb it. The system prompt sounds again. Ding! An energy substance has been detected that can provide energy to the system. Is it absorbed? Absorb. Ding! Congratulations to the host, you have obtained 1.254 points of energy, and the current system energy is 2.108 points. After the spiritual stone in hand has been absorbed, the system's prompt sound rings again. It is obvious that the energy of this spiritual stone is much more than that of the previous one. Using the same operation, Zhang Han absorbed hundreds of spirit stones and obtained a total of 115.44 points of energy. Previously, I spent a full 20 years of my lifespan in order to conceive the ultimate spiritual root. Today, I am only 36 years old, but in reality, it looks like I am in my 50s. Thinking of this, Zhang Han directly exchanged a longevity pill and ate it. He felt a very comfortable feeling in his body, as if it was light and floating. After a few seconds, the light and floating feeling disappeared. It seemed like there was no change, so Zhang Han opened the system and called up his own property panel. Name: Zhang Han, race. Human race, gender. Male, age. 37, cultivation. Innate level 1, talent. None, Shou Yuan. 64 I don't know how much longer life can be improved by taking a longevity pill. To verify, Zhang Han exchanged another longevity pill and ate it. After the feeling of lightness disappeared, he opened the personal attribute panel again, and this time, Shou Yuan increased a bit. Name: Zhang Han, race. Human race, gender. Male, age. 37, cultivation. Innate level 1, talent. None Shoyuan. 65 Sure enough, a longevity pill can increase 1 year's lifespan. Seeing this, he couldn't help but feel overjoyed. Isn't this an alternative form of longevity? As long as you have enough spiritual stones, you can live forever. Next, he exchanged another spiritual root enhancement pill, but after eating it, he didn't feel anything at all. There was still no change in the talent column of his personal habitability panel. Perhaps it was because he didn't have a spiritual root, so the spiritual root enhancement pill was of no use, and he began to ponder in his heart. Then, Zhang Han continued to exchange for Shoyuan pill. After taking Shoyuan pill, he found that his appearance became younger and his body became more energetic. In the end, he took 100 longevity pills and his face finally returned to the age of 20, much younger. Name. Zhang Han, race. Human race, gender. Male, age. 37, cultivation. Innate level 1, talent. None Shoyuan. 165, Grandpa, is that you? How did you become so young? As Zhang Han walked out of the room, the busy maid Caixia raised her head and carefully scrutinized him, then asked with a shocked expression on her face. Upon hearing this, Zhang Han smiled slightly, his heart filled with joy. He nodded and said, "It's me, Caixia. That's right, I've become younger. I just took the elixir my daughter brought back to treat her illness, and the effect is really amazing." Upon seeing this, Caixia also showed a sincere smile and said with a smile, "That's really great. Congratulations to the master for recovering his health. I wonder if the master's illness has completely healed." Zhang Han chuckled and replied, "Everything is fine, including that aspect." There was a hint of mischief and pride in his words, indicating that he was very satisfied with his recovery. "What aspect?" Caixia didn't react at first and asked in confusion. Zhang Han looked at her innocent expression and couldn't help but burst out laughing, saying, "Of course it's the man's side." Caixia finally reacted and her face instantly turned red. She quickly covered her mouth, her face full of shyness and embarrassment. Then, she hurriedly escaped, leaving Zhang Han standing still and laughing even happier. Over the years, the maidservants in the mansion have changed several times, but Caixia has always been by Zhang Han's side, taking care of all the affairs in the mansion. Her loyalty and diligence deeply moved Zhang Han, who had already regarded her as his closest person. Now, looking at the shy and lovely appearance of Caixia, Zhang Han's heart is filled with warmth and gratitude. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. Birth of Second Daughter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That evening, Zhang Han specifically called Caixia to his room. The candlelight flickered in the room, creating a particularly warm atmosphere. Caixia stood nervously, looking at Zhang Han's familiar yet seemingly unfamiliar face, filled with anticipation and curiosity in her heart. "Master, have you really recovered?" Caixia finally gathered her courage and asked softly. Her face was unusually rosy under the candlelight, and her eyes sparkled with anticipation. Zhang Han looked at her and a warm current surged in his heart. He smiled and nodded, saying, "Of course it's true. Just give it a try later and you'll know." As he spoke, he gently pulled Caixia and let her sit beside him. Caixia felt the warmth and closeness of Zhang Han, and couldn't help but feel a ripple in her heart. She never imagined that she would have such an opportunity to be so close to her master. Although she felt a little nervous in her heart, there was more anticipation and joy. Zhang Han gently grabbed her shoulder and let her lean against his chest. He felt the soft body in his arms and the faint fragrance on the colorful glow, his heart full of tenderness. Over the years, he has endured too much loneliness and pain alone, accompanied and cared for by colorful clouds, making him feel immensely happy and satisfied. Soon after, the candles in the room gradually went out, leaving only the moonlight outside the window shining into the room. Under the hazy moonlight, the figures of Zhang Han and Caixia tightly intertwined, as if merging into one. In a faint moment, there came a muffled moan from Caixia, accompanied by her slight breathing, and the entire room was filled with a warm and ambiguous atmosphere. This night was unforgettable for both Zhang Han and Caixia. Ding! Detected no spiritual root. Mother, are you bound as a Taoist couple? The system made another sound. Bind. Zhang Han quickly clicked to confirm. She has been with him for 18 years, never giving up. Zhang Han has long regarded her as his woman. Ding. Start binding the Taoist couple. Ding, successfully binding the Taoist couple. Shortly thereafter, at the moment of reaching the vertex, the system issued another prompt. Ding. Detected qualified germ cells. Should we immediately enhance our offspring's talent? No. Upon hearing this, Zhang Han quickly chose to deny. At present, Caixia is just an ordinary person, and her body cannot bear the huge burden brought by a child with the ultimate spiritual root talent. Zhang Han deeply remembers the pain of Fener's childhood sweetheart passing away due to her child, and he is unwilling to let Caixia bear the same fate again. The next day, when the morning sun shone into the room, Zhang Han woke up from his sleep. He opened his eyes and saw Caixia lying by his bed, with a tired face but a more beautiful appearance. Looking at her appearance, Zhang Han felt a surge of tenderness in his heart. He made up his mind to let Caixia live a happy life without any harm. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, more than half a year has passed. During this period, Zhang Han and Caixia lived a life of double accommodation and mutual habitation. They lived together, talked, and lived happily ever after. Zhang Han knew that if he wanted Caixia to give birth safely, he must make her stronger. So, he patiently taught Caixia to practice martial arts and let her practice the techniques left by her daughter. Although Caixia started late, she is intelligent and eager to learn. With the careful guidance of Zhang Han and the assistance of spiritual medicine, her progress is rapid. In less than 2 years, Caixia successfully reached her innate state, able to absorb the free energy between heaven and earth to strengthen herself. This also means that she now has enough ability to give birth without risk. Ding. Detected qualified germ cells. Should we immediately enhance our offspring's talent? Yes. Ding. The current mother body has no spiritual roots, so you have 4 options. 1. Consume 10 years of lifespan to cultivate top-quality spiritual root seeds. 2. Consume 100 years of lifespan to conceive the perfect spiritual root seed. Please select the reinforcement option. Zhang Han couldn't help but ponder that she had sex with Fener and gave birth to the offspring of the top-notch spiritual roots, which led to her death. Considering that Caixia is the first child, Zhang Han does not want to take risks, so he chose the first option, which is to conceive the ultimate spiritual root. I choose 1. As the words fell, Zhang Han suddenly felt as if something had been extracted from his body, and his body became very weak, but very comfortable. After finishing the task, he couldn't help but sigh that the power of the system was indeed powerful, able to control fertility so accurately, and could be born whenever he wanted, which could be artificially controlled. The system was very precise, and after that day, Caixia became pregnant. Since Caixia became pregnant, Zhang Han has always been by her side, taking great care of her. He takes good care of her every day, afraid of any health problems. With the assistance of spiritual medicine and the daily cultivation of Caixia, she finally gave birth to this child with top-notch spiritual roots safely. Caixia looked at her daughter in her arms, her heart filled with love, but at the same time, she felt a little guilty. She thought of Zhang Han's careful care for herself over the past 10 months, hoping that she could give birth to a son for him and inherit his bloodline. So she apologetically said to Zhang Han, "Master, I'm sorry, it's a daughter. I will definitely have a son for you next time." Upon hearing her words, Zhang Han smiled and comforted, "What's wrong with my daughter? She must look like you, I like her even more." He does not have a preference for sons over daughters, but instead prefers his daughter more. Because he knew that this daughter would be a replica of Caixia, inheriting her beauty and kindness. Although there is a widespread emphasis on men over women in the realm of cultivation, this is determined by the historical background, as boys are able to inherit the family lineage, while daughters eventually marry into their families. However, in Zhang Han's eyes, these concepts are not applicable. He deeply loves his daughter and regards her as a treasure, without prejudice based on her gender. Seeing Zhang Han's love for her daughter so much, Caixia finally let go of her guilt in her heart. She knows that regardless of the child's gender, it is the crystallization of her and Zhang Han's love, and it is worth cherishing and nurturing. After the news of Zhang Han's daughter's birth spread, countless people came to congratulate him. On the day of the full moon wine, guests from the Zhang mansion gathered in a bustling atmosphere. Hundreds of flowing tables filled the yard, offering a variety of delicacies and delicacies. Even the county magistrate personally came to congratulate, which shows how powerful the background of a top-notch spiritual root daughter is. Subsequently, Zhang Han entrusted a feng shui master to marry his daughter with a name called Zhang Ying, based on her Bazi. After Zhang Ying's daughter was born, Zhang Han sent this message to his eldest daughter Zhang Wen using a teleportation jade slip. Soon, Zhang Wen, the eldest daughter, sent a reply, stating that she was very happy and planned to go home to see her sister in 6 months. As a father, Zhang Han is also very happy. He misses his daughter very much, after all, she is his own little cotton jacket and lover from a past life. On that day, Zhang Han held his newly weaned second daughter Zhang Ying and gently said to her, "Ying Ying, is your sister coming back? Are you happy?" Zhang Ying, the second daughter, looked at her father with innocent eyes, giggling as if responding to his expectations. Since Zhang Ying was born, Zhang Han has transformed into a beloved madwoman. He revolves around his daughter every day, watching her grow up day by day, filled with satisfaction and happiness in his heart. The colorful glow on the side watched the warm scenes, with a happy smile on her face. She knew that this family had become more complete and beautiful because of the arrival of these two little lives. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 8 months later, Zhang Wen, the eldest daughter, went through hardships and crossed a distance of over 100,000 kilometers, once again stepping into the gate of Zhang's mansion. This time, she came back specifically to visit her sister, and it took her over a month just to make the trip. Although the long journey was arduous, her heart was filled with anticipation and joy. 2 years no see, Zhang Wen has grown up a lot and matured a lot. Now she is 20 years old, in the prime of her youth. Perhaps due to her cultivation, her skin has become pure and flawless, her figure is graceful and charming, and her every move exudes charming charm, making her a truly unparalleled beauty. Zhang Han looked at his daughter standing tall and graceful, filled with joy and pride in his heart. He knew that his daughter not only had an outstanding appearance, but also had exceptional talents, and her future achievements would be limitless. "Ying Ying, sister has come to see you. Do you like sister?" In the yard, Zhang Wen hugged her sister with a loving expression in her eyes. Although Zhang Ying couldn't understand, she still let out giggles. For the next 2 months, Zhang Wen stayed at home and played with her sister Zhang Ying every day. She teased her sister, taught her how to speak, taught her how to walk, and they got along very happily. Zhang Wen's return brought more joy and laughter to this family, and also made Zhang Han and Caixia feel more happiness and warmth. Due to the busy affairs of the sect, the eldest daughter Zhang Wen hurriedly left 2 months later. This time, she left behind thousands of spiritual stones and many spiritual medicines, obviously to support the family's cultivation and daily needs. Looking at the precious resources left by his daughter, Zhang Han felt quite embarrassed in his heart. He is well aware that his daughter has put in tremendous effort and cost for these resources, which are also extremely important cultivation resources for her. Zhang Han's heart was filled with gratitude and guilt, while also gaining a deeper understanding of the huge difference between cultivators and mortals. Zhang Wen's hurried return and departure made Zhang Han deeply appreciate the difference between cultivators and mortals. He realized that cultivators pursue immortality and endless power, and their world is full of danger and opportunities, which is vastly different from the trajectory of ordinary life. Therefore, he should not disturb his daughter too much, allowing her to focus on her cultivation and pursue her own path. Zhang Han decided that in the future, unless there were particularly important matters, he would not easily trouble his daughter. He understood that as a mortal, he would only become a burden on his daughter. Frequent contact will only interfere with her cultivation and make it difficult for her to concentrate. And he himself needs to utilize the power of the system to have more children. In this way, his cultivation can rapidly improve. After all, the golden fingers of the system are specifically designed for this purpose. Zhang Han finally had a glimmer of enlightenment in his heart. He understood his direction and goals, and also strengthened his beliefs and determination. Have more children and talk less about emotions. Strive to improve the quantity and quality of children. After absorbing the spirit stone sent by my daughter, the energy points in the system reached 1280.53, allowing for the birth of 12 heavenly spirit root children. After seeing Caixia give birth to a new child, there were no physical problems with her, so when her youngest daughter Zhang Ying was 2 years old, Zhang Han made her pregnant again. Considering her cultivation in the second level of Qi cultivation, Zhang Han believed that she should be able to withstand the pressure of nurturing a perfect spiritual root, so he allowed her to conceive a perfect spiritual root. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, it's another 10 months. Caixia once again gave birth to a daughter for Zhang Han. Seeing another daughter born, Caixia felt quite disappointed in her heart. "Husband, I'm sorry, I didn't give birth to a son for you," said Caixia with guilt in the delivery room. Zhang Han also felt strange, why only gave birth to daughters? It's been 3 consecutive times. Reflection may be a matter of probability. After all, when the system selects sperm, it will not choose whether it is a boy or a girl. Fool, it's great to have a daughter. I love my daughter the most, Zhang Han said painfully as he touched her soft hair. This time, because he has a system all, he can help Caixia exchange for shouyuan pills and make up for the losses caused by giving birth. Therefore, giving birth has no harm to Caixia. Zhang Han doesn't think there's anything bad about having a daughter. After all, Caixia is so beautiful that the daughter she gives birth to will definitely inherit her beauty. Zhang Han can't even like it in time, how could he not like it? Although Caixia has been influenced by the world's preference for boys over girls since childhood and has always had some concerns about not having a son, she tries her best to conceal her disappointment and does not want Zhang Han to worry. Zhang Han understood her thoughts and comforted her gently. "It's okay, we're still young. It's good to have a son in the future." Upon hearing these words, the haze in Caixia's heart instantly dissipated. She smiled sweetly and buried her head in Zhang Han's arms, feeling his warmth and love. In Zhang Han's embrace, she gradually fell asleep, with a satisfied smile on her lips. They once again found a master proficient in the 8 characters and feng shui, and named their daughter Zhang Yan. This name symbolizes beauty and intelligence, expressing their expectations and blessings for their daughter. Zhang Yan's full moon wine once again attracted many guests to congratulate her. Guests gathered in the Zhang mansion, and high friends were present, with laughter and joy echoing one after another. However, this time Zhang Han did not inform his eldest daughter Zhang Wen, as he was worried that worldly affairs would disturb her cultivation. After having 2 daughters, Zhang Han's life was filled with laughter and joy. He built a school in the small town, not only teaching and educating people, but also personally teaching his children, enjoying the warm time spent with his wife and daughter. Husband and wife love each other, the family is harmonious, and with more than a dozen maids taking care of household chores, Zhang Han's life is both comfortable and happy. However, Caixia's physical condition has become a hidden concern in Zhang Han's heart. Perhaps due to the cultivation of a perfect spiritual root, after giving birth to her second daughter, Caixia's qi and blood were depleted, and her body was noticeably weakened. Zhang Han saw it in his eyes and felt pain in his heart, so he began to try to avoid letting Caixia become pregnant again. He knew that frequent childbirth was extremely detrimental to women's health, but Caixia really wanted a son and kept pestering Zhang Han. Time flies like flowing water, and in the blink of an eye, 2 years have already passed. The younger daughter Zhang Yan is now able to run around, and the older daughter has grown to over 3 years old and can speak fluently. These 2 children are not only healthy and lively, but also intelligent and have extremely strong learning abilities. Zhang Han discovered that they could run around at the age of 1 and speak fluently at the age of 2, which surprised and delighted him. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. Is also the ultimate spiritual root. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, it's another 3 years. For 3 years, Caixia never gave birth again, relying on countless spiritual medicines and breaking through her innate realm, elevating her cultivation to the level of qi cultivation. Undoubtedly, it is the ultimate spiritual root. The eldest daughter Zhang Wen's cultivation speed is also very fast. In 3 years, her cultivation reached the 3rd level of the golden core. Thanks to the feedback from his eldest daughter and Zhang Han's usual cultivation, even without spiritual roots, his cultivation level reached 3 levels of qi cultivation. On this day, it is once again the day for the immortal sect to test its spiritual roots. The sect that tested the spiritual roots this time is Qing sect, one of the 4 major sects in Yunzhou, on par with Zixiao sect. In the center of the small town, Zhang Han and Caixia walked side by side, pulling their second daughter Zhangying, and once again arrived at the center of the small town. Zhang Xiucai, your daughter has also reached her age. Yeah. Haha. As a famous tycoon and scholar in the small town, Zhang Han is also highly respected. Along the way, countless people greeted him. At 10 o'clock in the morning, as a flying boat flew from the sky, the spiritual root detection began again. Zhang Han held Caixia's hand and stood in the crowd, watching his daughter queue up. Others may not be clear about it, but he is very clear that his daughter is also a heavenly spiritual root, and he is very reluctant to part ways with him again. But there's no way, after all, he's Zhang Ying's parents. Without parents, he doesn't want his child to live well. In this world, the immortal family is the best home. The number of children tested for spiritual roots this year is similar to previous years, with around 500 people. It is unknown how many children will have spiritual roots. According to previous year's testing results, only 2 of the over 500 children have spiritual roots at most, and occasionally none at all. Most of them are the lowest grade of the 5 spirit roots, which even the immortal sect does not want. After all, the 5 spirit roots of the lower grade are too poor, also known as the waste spirit roots. It is difficult to break through the foundation and have little value. Only the 4 spiritual roots in the lower grade spiritual roots can enter the immortal sect. After all, there is still a possibility that the 4 spiritual roots can enter the period of building foundations. Building foundations is the only way to refine alchemy in weapons, which is the true beginning of cultivating immortality. As before, after the arrival of the immortal master, he didn't say anything nonsense and started testing directly. The small town is also very familiar with spiritual root testing and has never made any mistakes. No spiritual roots, next one. No spiritual roots, next one. Next. As usual, more than 80 children were tested consecutively without any spiritual roots. Finally, the 84th child started testing. This is a very cute little girl. This time, the crystal ball finally underwent a change. I saw a mixture of red and yellow light emanating from the crystal ball, and it became increasingly bright, finally resembling an incandescent lamp. At the moment of seeing the test results, the young man who tested his spiritual roots couldn't help but feel happy and finally met a qualified disciple. High-quality fire spirit root, not bad. You have the qualification to enter the inner gate, stand behind me. Discovered a top-grade spiritual root disciple, and the young immortal teacher's face also showed a hint of smile. After hearing the immortal's words, the little girl couldn't help but show a bright smile on her face, and her parents also showed a surprised expression. Everyone around her looked at them with envy, and everyone knew that their family was about to develop. Quickly, the immortal teacher began to test the next child. No spiritual roots, next one. Next. Still not there, next one. Finally, Lingen's detection turned to his second daughter Zhang Ying. Caixia also tightened her hand as she held on to Zhang Han, indicating that she was also very nervous in her heart. After all, as long as it was a normal family, parents hoped that their child could stand out, and Caixia was no exception. Under the gaze of everyone, Zhang Ying, the second daughter, walked up anxiously and placed her tender white hand on the crystal ball. As a person in the world of cultivating immortality, she has heard people around her describe her cultivation since she was young. In addition, her sister is a genius cultivator, so she is very eager to cultivate immortality and is also very nervous about spiritual root testing. After placing her hand on the crystal ball, the young immortal who was testing the spiritual roots made a spiritual decision towards the crystal ball, and a faint golden light began to shine. At first, the young immortal didn't pay much attention and thought it was an ordinary spiritual root. But soon, the crystal ball began to perform exceptionally well, and the golden light grew brighter and brighter, finally becoming particularly dazzling like a sun. Seeing this situation, everyone around me was stunned. Tianlingen. That girl Wen Wen was like this last time. The onlookers couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Many of the people present remember the situation 25 years ago, which was the performance when the heavenly spirit root appeared in the test. Those who had not seen it before also learned about the detailed situation at that time through other people's descriptions after their eldest daughter Wen Wen was taken away by the immortal sect. The ultimate spiritual root, and it's also the female golden heavenly spiritual root inside the ultimate spiritual root. Great! Hurry up, tell the sect this news immediately. We have developed this time. The young immortal master was overjoyed in his heart. Detected top-quality spiritual roots, they will definitely receive a large amount of rewards after returning to the sect. Moreover, if there is a disciple of the heavenly spirit root, the strength of the sect will greatly increase. After all, the heavenly spirit root can cultivate to the Yuanying realm without any bottleneck, and the time will not exceed 100 years. There is also a great chance of breaking through to the divine transformation period and standing at the peak of the cultivation world. She is also Zhang Xiaocai's daughter and the ultimate spiritual root. The Zhang family is really going to rise against the sky. Oh my goodness, it's rare to see the heavenly spirit root in 100 years. Zhang Xiaocai is so lucky that both of his daughters are top-notch spirit roots. This luck is also too good. In the cultivation world, having any spiritual roots is determined by fate. Even penniless poor people can give birth to cultivation geniuses, with the same probability as those in the upper echelons of society. Zhang Han's daughter once again detected the heavenly spirit root, which made everyone in Heiyang town envious. Little sister, you look so beautiful. What's your name? At this moment, a very beautiful and ethereal young woman flew down from the flying boat, with a smile on her face, holding her small hand and gently asking Zhang Ying. Sister, my name is Zhang Ying, Zhang Ying replied obediently. Zhang Ying, this name sounds really nice. Who helped you choose it? The young female immortal asked in a soft voice. It's my dad helped me pick it up. Zhang Ying turned around and pointed to Zhang Han, who was holding hands with Caixia not far away. Following the direction pointed by Zhang Ying, the female immortal quickly found Zhang Han and pulled her second daughter Zhang Ying towards him. Sir, your daughter is a top-notch heavenly spirit root. Our Qing sect will definitely take her as an inner disciple and focus on cultivating her, said the female immortal. The female immortal said a lot, to the effect of how she will value her second daughter and make him feel at ease. I know. Zhang Han nodded with a very gentle attitude, even though he had already known what she was going to say, he listened very attentively to her words. After all, she is his daughter's guide, and Han Yi cannot offend her to avoid affecting his daughter's future life. The eldest daughter is an inner disciple of the Zixiao sect, and naturally knows what inner disciples mean. She is a key target of cultivation in the sect, and living there is very comfortable for the eldest daughter. We will take your daughter away later, and there is still some time left. Say goodbye to your daughter. Finally, the fairy said. Okay, thank you, immortal master. Ying, come over. Mom and Dad have something to say to you, Zhang Han said to his second daughter upon hearing this. Dad. Mother. Zhang Ying is very smart. She knew she was going to separate from her parents, and tears streamed down her face. Ying doesn't cry. Caixia walked over, her eyes also turning red. She held Ying in her arms and stroked her hair, feeling reluctant in her heart. Every parent hopes that their child will make a name for themselves, but the price is to leave themselves. Seeing their daughter leaving, Zhang Han's heart also feels a pang of pain. Don't cry, Ying won't cry. Caixia saw her daughter crying and quickly went to comfort her, but she herself had already shed tears. Immortal Master, I want to bring something for Caixia. I wonder if I can take her home with me to pick it up. Zhang Han looked at the mother and daughter crying bitterly and asked the young woman. Okay, I'll go with you too. The fairy teacher agreed without even thinking. Immediately after, a few people sat on the flying magic tools of the female immortal and quickly arrived at the Zhang mansion. After returning home, Zhang Han and Caixia prepared their second daughter with daily necessities and some things she loved to eat. Finally, Zhang Han gave her a big bag of books. These books were carefully compiled by him over the years, covering all knowledge from elementary school to university, covering a wide range and consuming a lot of his energy. As a traveler, Zhang Han hopes that his daughter can become a woman with modern thinking, not bound by this era. There is also a lot of knowledge in physics, chemistry, and biology, which is very important for cultivating her worldview and shaping her personality. I originally planned to teach her these knowledge myself, but because my daughter is leaving me, I don't have time to do these things. I can only hope that she can study hard in her free time, which will be beneficial to her in the future. Ying, these books were carefully compiled by my father. After going to the immortal sect, you must take a good look. Did you hear that? After packing these books, Zhang Han reminded him again. Got it, Dad, Zhang Ying replied obediently. Knowing that she was about to part ways with her parents, Zhang Ying was no longer mischievous as usual, but very obedient. Her small face was very serious, and Zhang Han looked at her with great heartache. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Caixia's Heart Disease. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Half a month later, Wen Wen returned to the Zhang mansion and specifically visited her sister, but she stayed for a month before leaving. This time, Wen Wen left behind thousands of spirit stones, as well as many spiritual medicines. This time, my daughter should be bleeding profusely, and Zhang Han is also quite embarrassed. Daughter Wen Wen hurriedly returned and then left, finally making Zhang Han understand that cultivators and mortals are not the same kind of people, and there should not be too many intersections. If there are no particularly important things in the future, Zhang Han does not intend to trouble his daughter. He will only be a burden on her daughter, causing her to be unable to concentrate on her cultivation. And I need to forget my previous unhappiness, happily establish my own family, have more children and more blessings. After all, my golden finger is specifically in this industry. Zhang Han finally had a glimmer of enlightenment in his heart. Have more children and talk less about emotions. Strive to improve the quantity and quality of children. After absorbing the spirit stone sent by his daughter, Zhang Han's energy point reached 1280.53, allowing him to have 12 heavenly spirit root children. After seeing Caixia give birth to a new child, her body had no problems at all, so when her youngest daughter Zhang Ying was 1 year old, Zhang Han made her pregnant again. This time, it's another child from the heavenly spirit root. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, it's another 10 months. Caixia once again gave birth to a daughter for Zhang Han. Seeing another daughter born, Caixia felt quite disappointed in her heart. "Husband, I'm sorry I didn't give birth to a son for you," Caixia said with guilt. Zhang Han also felt strange, why only gave birth to daughters? 3 in a row. Reflection may be a matter of probability. After all, when the system selects sperm, it will not choose whether it is a boy or a girl. Fool, it's great to have a daughter. I love my daughter the most, Zhang Han said painfully as he touched her soft hair. This time, because he has a system.All, he can help Caixia exchange for Shoyuan pills and make up for the losses caused by giving birth. Therefore, giving birth has no harm to Caixia. Zhang Han didn't think there was anything bad about having a daughter. After all, Caixia was so beautiful that the remaining daughter must have inherited her mother's beauty. Zhang Han didn't even have time to like it. How could he think he didn't like it? However, Caixia was brainwashed by the idea of valuing sons over daughters from a young age. On the surface, she didn't care about not having a son, but in reality, she highly valued it in her heart. Seeing that she was still unhappy, Zhang Han quickly comforted her and said, "It's okay, we're still young. It's good to have a son in the future." "Well, husband, you're so kind." After finishing speaking, Caixia buried her head in Zhang Han's arms, nodded, and a sweet smile appeared on her face. Soon after, Caixia fell asleep in Zhang Han's arms, with a faint smile on her lips. This is Zhang Han's third daughter, who also found a master proficient in Bazi and Feng Shui and named her Zhang Kai. This time, guests gathered again and high friends were present, but Zhang Han did not inform his eldest daughter Zhang Wen, fearing that worldly affairs would hinder her cultivation. After having 2 daughters, Zhang Han's life was no longer boring. He taught and took care of his own children on a regular basis. He was a loving couple, and with more than 10 maids helping with household chores, his life was comfortable and happy. After the birth of his second daughter, Zhang Han tried his best to avoid Caixia getting pregnant, as frequent childbirth was not good for women's health. Every time after the birth, he used his true qi to kill the eggs that Caixia had expelled. Just Caixia really wanted a son, but Zhang Han didn't agree. Time flies, and soon it will be 2 years. My youngest daughter Zhang Kaiyan can walk around, and my eldest daughter is now over 3 years old, able to speak fluently. Perhaps due to possessing the heavenly spirit root, Zhang Han discovered that his 2 daughters were not only very healthy and had never been sick, but also very intelligent. At the age of 2, Zhang Han can speak fluently and has a strong ability to learn. He also sees it in his eyes and enjoys it in his heart. On this day, Caixia became pregnant again. Not because Zhang Han, but because that day, Zhang Han drank a bowl of congee made by Caixia, and soon became unconscious. When he woke up, the colorful clouds were already flying up and down on him, and the fertilization was complete. Because Zhang Han was in an unconscious state, the system automatically made the optimal choice and injected a heavenly spirit root sperm into Caixia. Later, Zhang Han discovered that the fertilized egg strengthened by the system would be protected by the system, and his true qi could not be killed. Therefore, he could only watch Caixia's belly grow bigger and bigger day by day. Time flies, and in another 10 months, Caixia has given birth to a daughter again. After learning that she was another daughter, Caixia almost collapsed. Zhang Han tried his best to help her recover and avoid any psychological trauma. This is Zhang Han's fourth daughter, who also hired a master who is proficient in 8 characters and feng shui, called Zhang Yan. Having given birth to 3 daughters in a row, Caixia had some psychological problems and her health deteriorated significantly due to not having a son. With Fenner's lesson, Zhang Han never dared to let her have children again. Caixia, in the future, you need to take good care of your body and see what your figure looks like. We can't have children in 3 years. Health is the most important thing, and I still want you to accompany me for a lifetime. Zhang Han earnestly advised. But I want a son, so that our family can have successors and not be laughed at by others. Caixia shook her head and said. Don't rush to have a son, maybe it's because of your poor health that you can't conceive a son. Caixia, in recent years, you should take good care of yourself so that you can have a son, right? When you are well, you will definitely be able to have a son. Seeing Caixia's immense obsession with having a son, Zhang Han felt a bit heartbroken and could only gently persuade her. With Zhang Han's efforts to persuade her, Caixia finally listened to his words and decided to take good care of herself. Originally, Caixia had a good personality, but after several consecutive years of pregnancy, perhaps due to the influence of pregnancy, she became a bit neurotic. Zhang Han no longer wanted her to have children, only wanted her to live happily. What son? Is it important? You should know that you have a system, as long as you have a spirit stone, you will never die. You don't have to worry about inheritors, but unfortunately Caixia doesn't know, and Zhang Han can't tell her about having a system. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. Caixia's Persuasion. You are listening at novel.Audio. In the following period, Zhang Han began his life as a wet father again, circling around his 2 daughters every day. However, Caixia's mood has never been very good, with a heavy heart on her face. Seeing the woman he loved feeling so bad, Zhang Han had to try his best to comfort her, but this time it didn't work and instead advised him to marry another one. Originally, during these days, she repeated her old trick and knocked Zhang Han unconscious, then wanted to have another child. However, Zhang Han was already prepared and modified the system settings to no longer automatically conceive a child. So ultimately, Caixia was unable to succeed, and she believed that she could no longer have a child. Through Caixia's crying, Zhang Han finally understood the reason and why she insisted on having a son. That's because her identity is low, just a lowly maid. In this world, maids cannot be on the stage and cannot be a legitimate wife, especially without a son. Although Zhang Han did not have the hierarchical hierarchy of this era, treating her equally and treating her completely as a wife, she could not pass the psychological barrier herself. She was just an orphan who was sold to an ancient building since childhood, without even knowing who her parents were. Later, in order to establish the Zhang mansion, the immortal sect was fortunate enough to redeem her due to her excellent appearance, and she was sold to the Zhang mansion as a maid. After entering the Zhang mansion, Zhang Han was particularly kind to these lowly maids and never looked down upon them. He even encouraged them to find their favorite partner and give them a generous dowry. She has been lonely and helpless all her life. Here, Caixia finally feels the familial bond in the world. With the interaction with Zhang Han, Caixia gradually falls in love with him. Even if many good young men pursue her, she remains unmoved. Even if she knows that Zhang Han is not upright and inhumane, she has no regrets and stays by his side wholeheartedly. Sometimes she thinks that if she takes care of the person she likes for a lifetime like this, even if she has no children, it would be worth it because she can accompany her loved ones throughout her life. Unexpectedly, there was a turning point in the situation later on, and Zhang Han's failure was actually cured, and he also successfully became Zhang Han's woman. The moment Zhang Han accepted her was the happiest moment of her life, and from that moment on, Caixia devoted all her thoughts to Zhang Han. In this era, having no son is a very embarrassing thing, because without an heir, one will be subject to gossip from others. Even if one is wealthy now, it is like a castle in the air. So, for the sake of Zhang Han and this family, even if giving birth is painful, she is willing to conceive again and again, giving birth to one child after another for Zhang Han. I didn't expect that after 3 consecutive pregnancies, she still couldn't give birth to a son for Zhang Han, but she was already very old and couldn't continue to give birth to a child for him. Upon hearing this woman's crying, Zhang Han finally knew how much she loved him. He couldn't help but be deeply moved and held her tightly in his arms, reluctant to let go. In the past, he left all his love to his childhood sweetheart, Wen, and couldn't fully express his true feelings for Caixia. But now, the ice in her heart has finally been melted by her tenderness, and a second person has walked into her heart. Husband, you are the pillar of the Zhang family. The Zhang family must have a son to inherit the family business, so that they can live up to their ancestors and the foundation of the Zhang family will not be missed by others. Therefore, for the future of the Zhang family, I hope you can marry a young and beautiful wife. Caixia looked at Zhang Han and said seriously. Don't be foolish, in my heart, you are my true wife. Zhang Han kissed her forehead, feeling deeply moved and directly refused. Women in this era are really good, with all their thoughts on their husbands. It would be too difficult to meet such a woman in modern society. In his previous life, he also experienced 2 romantic relationships, both of which broke up because he didn't have money, making him dare not believe in any emotions anymore. Whenever it was quiet at night, he often thought that if he met a woman who was dedicated to him and never gave up, he would cherish her desperately. Now that he has met Caixia, he understands even more the value of being willing to win someone's heart and not being separated with bare hands. Husband, I can't be so selfish. You can find a legitimate wife. With a son, our family will have the backbone of the next generation. As I get older, I can't bear to have children anymore. Caixia began to persuade Zhang Han. What are you saying? I only love you now. Having so many daughters, even without a son, makes me happy. Zhang Han's heart was very firm. After hearing Zhang Han's words, Caixia's heart was filled with sweetness. But she knew that for the future of this family, she had to make her husband marry another woman and have a son, even if she no longer wanted to, she had to do so. So, in the following time, Caixia always persuades Zhang Han when she has something to do and nothing to do, which makes him very depressed. There is no wife who advises her husband to marry another woman. Considering that Caixia is 42 years old this year, in this era of low medical technology, there is a high risk of having another child. Unable to resist Caixia's ups and downs, Zhang Han finally agreed to marry another wife, of course, with a status parallel to Caixia. In fact, Zhang Han's decision was not only due to the persuasion of Caixia, but also due to the need for a systematic approach. According to the system rules, women with higher levels of spiritual roots can give birth to children with higher talents, because Caixia does not have spiritual roots and can only give birth to children with perfect spiritual roots at most. If he had a child with a woman with inferior spiritual roots, he could have a child with extraordinary spiritual roots. Extraordinary spiritual roots are one level higher than perfect spiritual roots, and are rare in the cultivation world for thousands of years, with a high chance of ascending to the immortal world. If you have a child with a woman with a medium-grade spiritual root, you can give birth to a child with an innate spiritual root. The innate spiritual root is more advanced than the extraordinary spiritual root, and it is difficult to encounter in the cultivation world for thousands of years. It is easy to ascend to the immortal world. If you have a child with a woman with a top-grade spiritual root, you can give birth to a child with a spiritual root. The spiritual root is more advanced than the innate spiritual root, and it is not only easy to ascend to the immortal realm, but also has a great chance of cultivating to the Tai golden immortal realm, living the same life as heaven, and obtaining eternal life. Lingpin Lingzhen is the highest level of spiritual roots in the cultivation world. However, there are also Xianpin Lingzhen, Shenpin Lingzhen, and Chaos Lingzhen above the Lingpin Lingzhen, which only appear in the immortal world and are extremely rare even in the immortal world. However, due to the existence of the offspring reinforcement system, Zhang Han can give birth to children of immortal spiritual roots with women with top-grade spiritual roots, children of divine spiritual roots with women with perfect spiritual roots, and even children of chaotic spiritual roots with women with extraordinary spiritual roots. Perhaps I don't have much concept of chaos spirit root, but in fact, chaos spirit root is the legendary chaos demon god, with levels divided into lower, middle, upper, and ultimate. For example, the legendary Pangu deity in mythology is actually the ultimate chaos spirit root, with the potential to create a world and open up heaven, and achieve enlightenment. The higher the level of spiritual root talent, the more energy it consumes. To give birth to a child with immortal spiritual root talent, not only does one need a woman with the highest level of spiritual roots, but also the mother of the child needs to reach the realm of immortality in order to conceive the immortal root. In the end, it will require countless amounts of energy, and it is estimated that it will not be enough to excavate a top-notch spiritual stone vein. Don't even think about it at the moment. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 10. Getting Married Yen Qing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Zhang, your family is very wealthy and has not found a legitimate wife for so many years. Chen Yuanwei has a daughter who is 18 years old and very beautiful. On this day, a famous local matchmaker came to his door and wanted to introduce him to a partner. As the top diamond king Lao Wu, it is very normal for matchmakers to come to his door, and it is not surprising for Zhang Han because he is too wealthy, and many women want to marry him. If it were in the past, Zhang Han would have firmly refused because he already had Caixia and did not lack women. He truly loves Caixia, and even if someone else's woman is beautiful, Zhang Han doesn't feel much, so he is not very interested in marrying another woman. But this time, due to Caixia's persuasion and the needs of the system, Zhang Han had already made a decision in his heart and decided to marry another woman. I can't find an ordinary woman, it's better to find a woman with spiritual roots. This not only allows me to have children with higher spiritual roots, but also makes it easier to cultivate and successfully conceive children. Zhang Han pondered in his heart. Getting married is a big deal, and whether one is beautiful or not is secondary. As long as they can live well, what's important is the wife's character, which directly determines whether the rest of her life will be happy. This time, Zhang Han did not refuse the matchmaker and stated his request to marry, one of which must have spiritual roots. After the matchmaker left, he also asked someone to inquire about Chen Yuanwei's daughter. She was really beautiful, and had a gentle and considerate personality. Her appearance and talent were also top-notch. However, she was just an ordinary woman, so Zhang Han gave up. I heard that the richest man in the small town was getting married, and the whole town was alarmed. Several matchmakers began to take action. Half a year later, after being inquired about by the matchmaker, Zhang Han finally targeted a daughter from an ordinary family in Heiang Town, named Yen Qing. Yen Qing is 18 years old this year, very beautiful, gentle in personality, and very kind. In addition, due to her ordinary birth, Yen Qing does not have the kind of lady temperament. She is hardworking and family-oriented, and has a particularly good personality, making her a very suitable woman for living. Of course, there is also the most important reason for choosing Yen Qing, which is because Zhang Han heard a message that Yen Qing has a spiritual root, but it is the lowest grade of the 5 spiritual roots in the cultivation world. Because the spiritual root is too poor, the immortal sect did not accept it. For such a woman, although Zhang Han cannot be described as loving, he also likes her very much in his heart. Having a spiritual root indicates that the other party can cultivate, and he only needs to let her improve her strength to have children for himself. Actually, what Zhang Han doesn't know is, due to Yan Qing's very beautiful appearance and excellent personality, coupled with her small family background and simple family background, those who proposed marriage in the past 2 years are about to break through the threshold. Many young men from 10 miles and 8 townships have visited her house to propose marriage, including wealthy young men, but they have all been rejected by Yan Qing's parents. At present, the Yan family is quite interested in one of the young men, but it has not been confirmed yet because Yan Qing is hesitant. If Zhang Han delays for a few more days, Yan Qing may be engaged to someone else. However, when the Yan family heard from the matchmaker that Zhang Han wanted to get married, the Yan family's parents agreed without even thinking about it. Mainly because Zhang Han is really excellent. Rich in millions, very wealthy. Thanks to taking the longevity pill, people have become very young, with a very handsome appearance and a transcendent temperament. Especially the daughter with 2 heavenly spirit roots and a background from an immortal sect, no one dares to provoke her. Finally, Zhang Han was also very kind to the women around him, and everyone looked at him with envy. I heard that if the servants in the mansion find their crush, Zhang Han will give them a generous dowry and treat them as his own younger sister. That's why many girls want to marry Zhang Han, but he didn't consider marrying another woman before, so he refused. The most crucial thing is that Zhang Han married a legitimate wife, and upon entering the door, she became the rightful and legitimate hostess. The position of the legitimate wife in a wealthy family is a very prominent identity, and in this era, there is no such thing as divorce. The legitimate wife will undoubtedly be the head of the inner house. Poor parents, in this world, every parent hopes that their daughter can marry a good man, so that their daughter can live a happy life without worries about food and clothing. In the eyes of the Yan family's parents, their daughter's marriage to Zhang Han is like a smoke rising from the ancestral tomb, enjoying happiness in the past, and there is no reason not to agree. Under the matchmaker's matchmaking, Zhang Han and Yan Qing met once. Although they didn't say a few words, they were both very satisfied with each other. Seeing Zhang Han so handsome, Yan Qing had no objection to marrying into Zhang's mansion, but instead had some expectations. And when Zhang Han saw the pure and beautiful Yan Qing, his eyes lit up. No wonder the matchmaker said that many people had come to propose marriage. Yan Qing is a beautiful woman at the school flower level, with clear water blooming like a hibiscus, naturally exquisitely carved, and a hint of ethereal aura, possibly due to the presence of spiritual roots on her body. A few days later, the two became engaged. A few months later, the town of Heiang was decorated with lights and decorations, and Zhang Han married Yan Qing back home with an 8-legged sedan chair. Riding on a tall horse, Zhang Han thought of his previous wedding with Funner. At that time, they only had a simple wedding because neither of them had money. Now he has money, but she is no longer here. Zhang Han looked at the colorful scene in front of him and decided to put Funner deep inside to start a new life. Say goodbye to heaven and earth. Erbai Gao Tang. Husband and wife say goodbye. Li Cheng. On the day of his wedding, Zhang Han hosted a banquet for many people, even officials from the county town came. After all the relatives and friends left, Zhang Han arrived at the new house. On the night of the bridal chamber and the night of the candles, when the gold medal was won. In the new room, a beautiful woman wearing a phoenix crown and rosy robe quietly waited for her husband's arrival. Looking at Yan Qing's graceful figure, Zhang Han felt a little excited. Although he only saw her once, her stunning beauty had already penetrated deep into his heart. Zhang Han walked up to her, lifted the red veil, and a face that was pleasing to anger and joy appeared in front of her. Husband! Yan Qing exclaimed shyly. Madam, let's have a toast. Fong Hao quickly said upon hearing this. Yan Qing replied in a low voice, with a blush on her face, appearing very shy. After drinking the toast, the atmosphere became ambiguous. Soon, the candles in the room went out. Not long after, in the room, what's going on? The system did not prompt to bind as a Taoist couple. System, what's going on? Why don't we bind her as a Taoist couple? Zhang Han asked. Before, when I had sex with Wen Wen and Caixia for the first time, the system immediately prompted me to bind the couple. Why didn't it appear this time? Ding. Respected host, the Taoist couple's requirement is that their appearance value should exceed 80% and their sincerity index should exceed 80%. The current appearance value of the mother body is 89, and the sincerity index is 5%, so it cannot be bound to Taoist couples. If you want to bind, please increase the sincerity index. The system replied. The sincerity index. What is that? Zhang Han asked in surprise. The sincerity index represents the degree to which the other person loves you, and it needs to be cultivated by the host and the other person together. The current maternal sincerity index is 5, please strive to improve. As the sound of the system fell, a table appeared in front of Zhang Han, recording the definition of sincerity index. Negative sincerity index. Enemy sincerity index 0.1%. Stranger sincerity index 10% to 50%. Ordinary friend sincerity index 50% to 60%. Ambitious friend sincerity index 60% to 70%. Ordinary couple sincerity index 70% to 80%. Passionate couple sincerity index 80% to 90%. Sincere couple sincerity index 90% 99%. True love couple sincerity index 100%. Eternal lover at present, his relationship with Yan Qing is only a stranger, and there is no emotional communication at all. No wonder he cannot be bound as a Taoist couple. Next, Zhang Han examined the situation of Caixia and found that her appearance was 91, with a sincerity index of 100%, reaching the level of an eternal lover. The eternal lover remains steadfast until death and will never change her heart. However, it's also good. With the sincerity index, he will know the attitude of his woman towards him, who is sincere towards him and who is hypocritical towards him. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.